I am not going to homeschool my second son exactly the way I did my first son. Let's talk about everything that I'm going to change. Hi, I am Rachel from 7 and All, and if you are new to this channel, then I just want you to know I am a second generation homeschooler. I was a homeschool graduate myself, and I am now beginning the journey into homeschool for the second generation. I am changing it up a little bit. I am approaching homeschool with a bilingual homeschool approach. We are raising our boys speaking both Spanish and English while they are growing up here in Southeast Asia. And I would love for you to subscribe to our channel, watch our adventures in homeschooling and our journey, while I also share tips and information about books and curriculum. So definitely click the subscribe button down below and leave me some comments. I love to hear what you have to say. Now, let's talk about what I'm going to do differently when I'm homeschooling my second child in comparison to how I started the homeschool journey with my first. I feel like this is definitely a topic that you'll hear a lot of moms talk about, but I want to frame it in a different way from what you might have heard before. I think many times you hear what I'm going to do differently with my second child, you hear it framed as mistakes or as regrets that you have from when you were homeschooling your first child, things that you've learned along the way and improved. And that's good. We should always be learning and improving throughout life. But I kind of want to reframe this, because just because we're doing something differently doesn't mean that we did it bad the first time necessarily. There's two key things that are different to notice from when you're homeschooling your first child to when you're homeschooling your second child. First of all, it is a different child. The two children are not the same. This was impressed upon me very clearly when they first handed me my son there in the hospital bed when he was born. My second son, my very first thought I had looking at him was, "You are not your brother," which it was kind of a dramatic shock to me to some extent. But from day one, he has astounded me with, he is not the same person as his big brother. He is very different. He is his own individual self. This is true of all of our children. There isn't just a one size fits all. This is how I homeschool, and I homeschool all my kids like this. There are going to be different elements simply because the child is different. And number two, be aware you're in a different season of life. Your first child changes your life and rocks your world, and you start living in a whole new way. I mean, did you frequent playgrounds before you had young children? No. You don't do that when you don't have kids, and then you have kids and suddenly you're like, oh, where's the closest playground? Hey, this playground is much better than this playground because this one has swings. Suddenly you have opinions on playgrounds. So having one kid totally changes your life. Having a second kid also totally changes your life, changes your season. I'm in a different season of life now that my youngest son is 2 than I was when my oldest son was 2. So those are kind of the big elements I want you to take going into this video. Not that I'm approaching this from I learned so much and I made so many mistakes, but it's different, so different things necessitate different plans, different responses. So here are the two big things I'm changing. Number one, I am not going to be starting a homeschool routine, a regular recorded homeschool routine with him at such a young age. You can actually find on this channel, I had a homeschool schedule routine written down for my 2-year-old. It's titled Homeschool Routine for a 2-year-old. That video was actually published before my oldest son turned 2. So I did have a regular, like, kind of empty boxes routine going with him before he even turned 2 years old. And there were good reasons for that. I didn't have a plan. If you go back to the video, and I'll try to link it in the cards below, it's actually very similar to the same reverse scheduling I do right now. I did that because at that time, I had never had a toddler in my life. I had not had a toddler in my life since my youngest sisters were toddlers a very long time ago. I wasn't used to living toddler life. I didn't own Play-Doh until that point in life. I was not used to being in the habit of, doing little kid toddler things. I wasn't used to, this routine of, oh, he can do stuff. He's interested in spending time with me reading books. So it was a way to intentionally have me make time for my toddler in this life. I also had a newborn at that time. So when you're in that dynamic of having a newborn who has so many needs and also having a toddler who also has needs but they're not as urgent, it was a way to intentionally make time for him and for his level throughout the day, and for me to start being like, oh, maybe I should buy a puzzle because I don't have any puzzles, or maybe I should, get some toddler-ish learning stuff because I didn't have anything. I was just starting out. Get a matching game so we can play, matching bears. It was the very beginning. Those of you who are older parents, you will remember the beginning of parenting is very different from later on because you don't have anything. You don't have all the toys that you have later to do things with, or the games. You don't own crayons. So that was just the beginning, and that was very helpful. Also at that time was about right when the pandemic started, and for us the pandemic started with 2 solid months of lockdown and not being able to even leave our apartment with the kids, and then that followed with extended many months of the kids weren't allowed to go to any public places. So they could at least go for a walk in the street, but they couldn't go to the grocery store or the mall or anywhere. So having the routine of homeschooling with him, we're gonna read books for half an hour here, and then we're gonna play a game here, and we're gonna do Play-Doh, we're gonna do some sensory play. Having that routine throughout my day was a lifesaver when you're in a very small place in lockdown with very small children. So it fit the season of life I was in. It also fit the child that he was. He was the kid who would have, at 3 months old, sat down and read books for an hour with you. At 1 year old, he would sit down and read books for an hour. At 2 years old, same thing. At 3 years old, he will still sit and read books for an hour. He loves to sit and read. My second son, this is getting to the other element of he is a different child. At 3 months old, if you tried to read him a book, he would have screamed his head off. At 6 months old, you tried to read him a book, same thing, scream his head off, twist, try to get off of your lap. 1 year, still scream his head off and try to run away. He hated books. My mom always laughed. She's like, I've never known a baby who hates books so much. Now, if if his brother is reading a book and they have a nice snack and they're together, now that he's 2, he will sit down and listen to stories with his brother. But he did not have the same natural love of books that his older brother did. So it's those elements of it's a different season and it's a different child. I don't feel the need to start a regular preschool routine as much with my current 2-year-old as I did with my first 2-year-old, because he just can join in on whatever his brother does that he wants to. I am already in a routine of offering, Play-Doh times or sensory play, or we're getting out the crayons, or we're getting out paint. Now I'm in this routine of offering it to them, and the little one joins in quite a bit with that. So I don't have to have his own separate activities at this point. So my plan right now is I will probably start doing more of a regular, just for him routine, kind of at his level when he turns about 3. So still waiting quite a while till about the end of 2022, and then we'll start, having a couple of his own kind of things. He does have a couple of workbooks, like little sticker books or scribble, trace this line across the page type of things that he really, really likes to do, and he loves to go and poke his head on us when we're working on alphabet cards and say, or ba ba. Like, he's joining in with us a lot, so there's not so much need for his own little routine yet. He's my cuddly baby, so he naturally forces himself to get a lot of quality time with me. He is on me a lot. So yeah, different kid, different season. That's the one big change I'm making. I'm not planning to have a 2-year-old preschool routine specifically for him. The second big change that I am making and having in place with him is more Spanish. I'm going to be planning to be, and already am, even heavier on the Spanish influence for him than I was with my older son. And this is, again, it's just the change that time has brought. When my first son was born, I don't think I was really prepared for bilingual parenting. It was kind of a gradual revelation to us. My husband was speaking Spanish to him from day one. They're dancing to Mexican songs, you know, in the hospital when he was a newborn. But it took a while for me to grow a lot in confidence. It took me a while to grow in learning the different parenting commands. Siéntate, ponte tus zapatos, you know, all those things that sound very normal to me now. I wasn't so comfortable with them a couple years ago. I didn't know a lot of Spanish children's music artists. We didn't own very many Spanish books. So we've invested a lot into Spanish in the past couple years, and I already see a big difference in how much Spanish my younger son speaks now versus how much Spanish my older son spoke at his age. My older son does speak more Spanish than him, but that's because he's older. My younger son does have more Spanish already, and purely preschool or puramente preescolar exists now. It didn't start existing until after my older son was already 3. I'll be able to start right away. When I do start a preschool routine, I'm going to start right away with puramente preescolar, a Spanish literature-based preschool program that I created, and we're going to be able to go really heavy into Spanish during the early years. As a bilingual homeschooler, I do take a little bit of an odd approach to preschool. Learning the alphabet and so much emphasis on alphabet and numbers is not the most important thing to me, because to me, I'm like, ultimately learning the alphabet is relatively easy, learning numbers is relatively easy, learning Spanish is relatively hard. That is what I have decided since my Spanish learning journey kind of began around when I was 18. That's hard to learn a language as an adult, but when it's easy to learn a language? It's when you're 1, when you're 2, when you're 3, when you're 4. That's the time when it's really easy to learn a language. So we have gone really heavy, but it's been gradual. So it's more so for my second son, he's getting more of the benefit of, we're just jumping into Spanish as much as possible. And it's not that we don't do anything with English or read English books or teach the English alphabet. We will, absolutely, and we do. That does obviously come up. But his experience of preschool will be more heavily Spanish than his older brothers, simply because I've learned and grown a lot more in my Spanish skills in just the past couple years. So those are the big 2 changes I am making. Let me know in the comments what you think, and also what your experience has been with homeschooling and the transition from 1 kid to 2 to 3 as your kids grow. Have you found that homeschool does change and become different because of different kids and because of different stages in life? Let's talk about it. See you next time.